another thing you mentioned was that in many ways the Daily Minute mimics our times of hyperflux in the digital age, where everything is sound bites, people's memories are short, everything is speeded up.
Right.
In ways that even was not the case 30 years ago.
No, it's all about I want it now.
You're right, right. And where do you think a culture with that kind of mentality is heading to? Where everything's instant gratification, right?
I think a lack of patience and wanting instant gratification is, you know, I don't want to say we're all going to hell,
but Daily Minute likes to kind of imply that, you know.
But I don't think it's going to lead into a good, wholesome place.
Right. I mean, on the other hand, there's an apocalyptic dimension of the Daily Minute because global warming is discussed a lot, besides our financial problems, and yet we seem to be heading in that direction really fast. Maybe in 30 years, as the climate crisis overtakes us, you know.
Yeah, I think you can see that, and you know, these are problems that are not going to change overnight.
Right.
These are problems that may always be problems. And I think something like this, where you can talk about these problems and say, look, you know, this may never get better. We might just have to deal with it.
Right, and many billions might die. But
exactly,
you know,
right.
The black comedy aspect of Daily Minute.
And if you can find humor in it, and I don't think everybody would, but a certain population of people would. Right.
Black comedy does have its niche in the spectrum of comedy.
Exactly right.
But it's a narrower niche than, you know, romantic comedy, buddy stories, you know, or slapstick.
Because it's not relatable to everybody.
Right, right. I mean, I feel that satire and black comedy are the more advanced forms of comedy if you look at the entire spectrum. And Daily Minute pretty much occupies that area.
Right.
So that's why it's not accessible to most people.
Right.
Precisely because it demands an audience that's more aware and intelligent.
You need to be a little smarter to be able to understand the Daily Minute.
Right. I mean, many comments that we got on Facebook before we got kicked out and YouTube was that, what is this shit? This isn't funny. You know, I don't know who made the comments. You know, could have been a 13-year-old. But it seemed to be a pattern, you know, that a lot of people just didn't get it and were angry about it. It wasn't that they just didn't get it. They were upset and they wanted to basically, you know, diss the show.
And maybe that's okay. And I think the people who are going to leave comments are going to be either extreme. They're either going to hate it or they're going to like it. More so hate it.
Yeah, definitely we encountered that. And that's, I guess, the bipolar dimension.
And the viewer that hates it is going to want to give you a piece of his mind. And
he's venting, he's projecting for us. Yeah.
And I don't think you should look at all those negative comments as being representative.
Sure, sure. I mean, we never really fully found our audience. I think we're still under the radar a bit.
Right.
But from our analytics, we had very strange things. You know, it was mostly 35 to 55. You know, Gen X to baby boomer tailors. Okay, who are audience.
Right.
Many of them were guys.
I'd be interested in finding out, you know, what types of avenues you would go and market this into.
Sure. We had in Saudi Arabia, it was very popular among women who were in their 30s.
Really?
Yeah, it was popular in France among women who were teens. And in England, it was popular among guys in their 30s. And in Germany, it was popular among women in their 30s. It was popular in Egypt. We never thought in Egypt we'd have fans.
I don't see a whole lot of common denominators here, and I think that's exactly what you're trying to achieve. Is there aren't a whole lot of common denominators.
Right.
It's irregular enough to be.
Yeah, and of course our main market, of course, audience is in the U.S. and Canada. Okay, mainly New York, California, Illinois, and Texas, and Florida.
Okay, so you're saying the larger states, the more metropolitan states, and you said a lot of these people are in their 30s.
To 55. 35 to 55 seems to be. And on Facebook, it was split even between men and women.
Right.
But on YouTube, it's like really mostly guys.
Right.
But some episodes on YouTube are split also evenly between women and men.
I imagine you need to be within your prime, in your 30. You know, a young adult would find this probably funny. A young adult in their 30s would probably find this entertaining,
Right.
especially one that has an education. The same type of people that would find Conan O'Brien or Jon Stewart funny.
Sure, or Bill Maher.
Or Bill Maher, exactly
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Well, Gen Y in their teens and 20s, you know, the more wired generation, I think they're used to a comedy that's very different.
Right.
They're used to comedy that's, I don't know, I wouldn't say dumber or sillier.
I would say dumber and sillier.
Okay, and that has just moves quickly, and then they eat it like candy, and then on to the next, you know,
and
M&M.
this wouldn't be for sort of a Jay Leno type of audience. This would not be for the middle class family in Ohio.
Right. Yeah.
I don't think they'd get a lot out of this.
Yeah. I mean, I've gotten comments from those kind of people where like, I don't get it.
No,
you know?
and I wouldn't expect them to. This isn't for blue collar.
Right.
This isn't the blue collar. You know, Jeff Foxworthy type.
One guy in L.A. was earnestly trying to say, I was trying to understand your show, and he was earnest, but I just don't get it, you know, and so, you know.
And that's okay, no fault of his.
Right.
And that's perfectly fine. It takes a certain, you have to be able to see the world a certain way to be able to find comedy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, the guy didn't diss, but he was just very, you know, upset that he just, you know, raised his hands up and get it. All right, so I think we need to wrap up now.
Okay.
And do you have any last comments before we wrap up?
I think you have a lot of potential here to go in a lot of interesting directions. You have the ability to be funny, you have the ability to be provocative, and you have the ability to mean something.
Right. So that means that we are kind of cutting edge.
Right.
And of course, when you're cutting edge, you're going to be misunderstood by a lot of people.
Right.
Simply because you're at the edge. But that's the only kind of comedy that I could personally do.
All the great ones were misunderstood.
Right, that interests me because, you know, I felt this was a sincere and vital expression of who I am and what our times are like.
And sometimes it's not about the product itself, it's more about what it represents.
Right. So with that, Mihir, I want to thank you for coming to our studios for this talk. It's probably the first critical talk about our comedy we've ever done, and I'm sure this will help educate people about the Daily Minute and give them a skeleton key, you know, so they can appreciate the more subtle shades of this, you know, thought-provoking comedy. What the fuck, as people say, you know. So with that, thank you so much, and we'd love to talk to you again sometime in the future.
I look forward to it.
Okay, thank you, Mihir.
Best of luck, Mike.
All right, thanks. Okay.